Matt Miguez has plenty on his mind, and he's ready to share it with the world. It's time to hear the Miguez Mindset.
Welcome into another edition of the Miguez Mindset. Matt Miguez here. This week we're going to talk some more Raging Cajuns football. Last week at Sunbelt Media Days, I did have the opportunity to sit down with the commissioner, Keith Gill. Also had the opportunity to chat with Louisiana head football coach Michael Desormeaux. We talked about quite a few different things. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get it on video, but really a great interview all in all. So we're going to handle it this way. First question that I asked him was, to recap last year, 6-7, you make it to the Independence Bowl, kind of hit some bumps in the road with injuries, and this offseason being so much different from your first offseason as head coach. I asked him to recap last year and how this offseason has gone from his perspective.
I think in that first season, there's a lot of, flashing lights and things kind of all over the place a little bit that you're trying to, hone in on what's really important. And certainly it starts with me, right? There's a head coaching change, and there's a whole lot to that. And then you have staff change, and then certainly the roster, when you lose really a legendary player at the quarterback position, a really talented group of O-linemen that go, plus the other attrition that you had. There was a lot of distractions, and I think kind of things circling around the program. I was proud of a lot of the things we were able to accomplish. A team that really found a way whenever, we hit a little slide there at the beginning of the year with a group of guys that had never really lost, much less 3 in a row, right? And to see them rally and rebound and kind of spark that team to get back to playing really good football. And, then you lose a quarterback who wins the job, and, and then the next guy comes in and plays really well. There was a lot of things in there that I was proud of. But certainly this year is about getting back to the ultimate goal of winning conference championships. And, last year I knew there was going to be some challenges, but, I'm not going to be one to ever sit there and make excuses and do those things. The reality of it is, we should have won 10 games last year. So, our goal is to get back to winning those games that we need to win and putting a product out there that continues to play really hard, continues to play in a way that we all want them to play, but manages some situations a little bit better and finds a way to win. Because at the end of it, ultimately, that's what kind of determines what kind of year you had, right? Is the wins and losses. So that's where the focus is, and it's little things that make that difference. As coaches, it starts with putting players in position to go make plays, and then for players, the experiences from last year that a lot of these young guys have coming back, that experience needs to start to carry over to making those plays in critical situations, and we need to continue to do things to help them be in position to do what they do best. So, the off season, there's always a lot of kind of self-reflection. There's always a lot of self-scout. There's always a lot of things that you're looking at. To say, I think the easy thing to say, well, we just didn't play very good, or we just lost whatever. But that's not really a plan. You have to sit down and have a plan, and our coaching staff did a really good job with that, and our players, man, they just do the work, and that's what we ask them to do. And so we're excited about where we are. Had a great spring. The summer has been phenomenal. I just can't wait to get back on the grass with them.
I also had the opportunity to talk to him about the quarterback room. Chandler Fields, Ben Woldridge, both battling injuries in the spring. Zeon Chris got to get a lot of playing time because of that. Now that your quarterback room looks healthier, Ben Woldridge getting 100% cleared, what does that quarterback room look like, and how beneficial is it to have that depth and experience that you do have?
Last year you had guys that you hoped could go win games for you, right? This year you got guys that can go win games. And, the best news is that, Ben just got fully cleared, which is huge for us. Had he not gotten hurt, there would be no competition at all. It would be, all right, well, who's the 2 and who's the 3 between Zeon and Chandler? Because both those guys are really talented as well. So I think for us with Ben, the big thing is just going to be that make sure that his mental health is on line with his physical health. We know physically he's good to go now, which is a testament to him and how hard he's worked, and our training staff and the physical therapists that worked with him. But now we just got to make sure that mentally he's good to go, because I think Ben has mastered this offense like through sweat equity. He's up there every morning at 7 a.m. watching film, and he's deep diving into it, and he's asking questions, and he wants to know every in and out about it. So he's earned those types that respect from his teammates, and he's earned the knowledge that he has through sweat equity. I think the big thing is going to be how mentally ready is he. And then for us, we were hoping in spring to be able to have Chandler and Zion. That kind of figured out. But, it was unfortunate for Chandler more than anything, because he missed some significant time, with that off-season procedure. And then, for Zion, that was probably the best thing could have happened, because it was like, man, you're going to be accelerated, at a pace that no one else could really do. So a lot of good things in there, with the experience Zion got in the spring. Chandler played well in the back end. Ben certainly won the job in the fire, and played really good for us. So it's a good situation to be in. We get to go out there and go compete with three guys that you feel are game ready. And then, like I said, a lot of that just depends on kind of where Ben's at. And then from there, we'll figure out who gives us the best chance to win week 1.
Skill players are the next most important part, in my opinion. I had the chance to ask him about his running backs and receivers. You look at that running back position, you replace a guy like Chris Smith, and that's a room that you've put quite a few guys in the NFL over the last couple of years. Raymond Kale, Elijah Mitchell, Elijah McGuire, Trey Regis. So, what does that room look like now with guys like Draylon Washington and Jacob Kabodi getting to step up? And also at receiver, you lose a lot with Michael Jefferson and John Stevens Jr. departing. How do you build that up with guys like Jacob Bernard and Peter LeBlanc? So I asked him about his skill positions and his assessment of that group.
I'll start at running back. Last year when you have a guy like Chris, it's kind of like, well, it's Chris's show. So everybody in that room's just kind of taking a back seat. And where it really hurts you is when Chris gets hurt and misses, 3 or 4 games in there, and those other guys just kind of took a back seat. This year it's just been wide open at running back. So, you've kind of seen the best of those guys, and you've seen them compete for it. And coming out of spring, Dre had a great spring. Kabodi, is doing it more consistently, which he's got all the ability to do, and that's always been the thing for him. Zylan Perry has really emerged as a guy that's going to be a really good one. And then Terrence Williams, we need Terrence. We want Terrence to embrace that Trey Regis type role. Be the bully, man. Be the bruiser in there, because when we had, hell, you can go back to Alonzo Harris, right? When you had those guys, that's how you finish games, with backs that are like that. So you got a good group there. And then at receiver, last year was kind of unique because you had 2 or 3 deep at all 3 receiver spots. This year, you got Peter and Jacob and Lance that, Pete has made plays his whole career. Jake last year had a great year. Lance finished the year really good. Those 3 guys need to kind of carry that receiver room, and they need to be productive early on while you figure out, okay, is Harvey ready? Charles Robertson, Jaden Johnson, those really talented, Rob Williams, those talented young guys that are behind them, who is ready to emerge? AJ J-Row had a really good spring this spring. Who's ready to go out there and be the second guy that, Pete needs 2 plays here. Okay, who's the guy that goes take 2 really good plays, or 3 or 4, whatever the case may be. So you have a veteran group that's made. It's almost kind of like our defense was last year, like the crust, right? The starters were guys that you, like, boom, you knew you could depend on and count on, but the backups were like, okay, well, who is going to rise and be those guys? So it's a little bit like that in the receiver room, which is good, though. I mean, it lets us put those 3 guys out there and carry the load until 2, 3, 4, 5 other guys show, look, we deserve to be out there and go play and go make these plays. And that's something that, we're going to get to figure out in fall camp and through the early part of the year.
Next, we got into the trenches. That's where games are won and lost, according to most people. The offensive line, the experience that he has coming back, a lot of those guys were new last year. Your Jax Harrington, your Landon Burton, didn't really have much experience going into last year, but now that they've got a full season under their belt, what is that offensive line going to look like for the Louisiana offense?
Well, it's a totally different situation right now with the offensive line than it was last year.
Yep.
Last year you had You had 4 starters that were returning that were coming off of off-season surgeries. This group has been able to compete together, work together, and kind of gel from February all the way through now. So last year, where truthfully we were kind of trying to find week to week 7 guys that were healthy that we felt could be game ready to play. This year, you feel like you got 10 or 12 or maybe 13 that could be game ready, and that's certainly that's a difference, and that has been the difference for us. So, our strength and conditioning staff's done a really good job with that group, and so have Coach Ross and Coach Norwood. They've developed those guys and gotten them to a point where you got a lot of guys that are contending for, if not a starting spot, a 2 deep spot, and a chance to play a lot and play significantly. So we approach the offensive line a little bit differently than maybe most people would have. But I knew that in the long run, taking the guys that we took and taking guys that we knew could develop into being special players, I knew that would be better for us in the long run. Was it better for us last year? Maybe not. But I think when you're trying to build this thing to last a long time, I think you have to do it with the end in mind. You have to start with the end in mind, and I'm happy with where we are.
And then on the other side, defensively, a group that lost a lot. Andre Jones is now in the NFL. Zion Hill-Green playing professionally as well. What is that group shaping out to be with a lot of new faces? Jordan Lawson, Nigel McGriff, Sonny Hazard had a big year last year. Can he build on that yet again? So I got head coach Michael Desormeaux's thoughts on the defensive line as well.
So defense is kind of a cool deal, because we've got a lot of we're young, we got a lot of sophomores and juniors, but they've got a lot of experience. Yep. And again, I say all the time, we play a lot of people by design. Number one, it helps to develop them throughout the course of the year. Number two, it takes the workload off the starters. And then number three, when you naturally lose starters, which is what happens in college football, you have guys that have played a lot that are ready to do it. So, I think the biggest thing up front, I don't think you replace Zion and Dre. I don't think you go 1-for-1 with those guys. You have to do it. You have to share the workload. And, we've added quality depth there with some older guys. We signed a really good group of high school kids that are going to be really good. You figure that out as you go. I think you can hope maybe freshmen are ready, but I don't know that you can really use that as a plan. So, we took Antoine Bayless as a transfer. We took Kadarius Wade as a junior college mid-year enrollee. And then you add that to Mason Norsees, who's played really good for us. Jordan Lawson, who played great last year. Marcus Weiser, Sonny Hazard. Nigel McGriff has really turned it on this year. So you got, 2 and 3 deep at those spots that you're like, okay, this might not be, maybe what Zion was last year, hopefully, right? But even if not, you kind of spread that out a little bit. And, we've got some guys that, again, Lawson and Bayless and Mason, it's time for those guys to go impact the game. And, you feel good about where they're at in the secondary. And we played a bunch of those cats last year, with Court, Skip, T. Lou. Jalen Clark is going to play a lot this year. He'll be a new one back there. Key Barnes needs to fit in the mix a little bit. We took a transfer in Glenn Brown at corner, which now looks like a really good move, with what you lose. Keon Martin was a transfer the year before that maybe last year didn't play like we thought, but has really turned the corner this summer. Amir McDaniel played really good at times last year. Caleb Anderson stepped up and played really good. We had Shadwell and Kuba late, a junior college Mayout guy, and Justin Agu. And then, you've got 2 freshmen at corner that I think are really, really going to be good. Again, it's just when. Is it now? Maybe not. That's okay because you added a little bit of depth where Dubose and Jeremiah can continue to develop and grow. And then when they're ready, they'll be really good players. But you can ruin a corner now if you play them too early. That's a spot that, it's almost like quarterback. You can do more damage, more harm than good for sure.
Schedule's interesting for Louisiana. They open with Northwestern State. They have a conference game in week 2. They go on the road to Minnesota. A bunch of different aspects there to think about. So I got head coach Michael Desormeaux's thoughts on the schedule for the 2023 season as well.
Our job is to play who's on that schedule, and to prepare. And for us as coaches, certainly we do preseason scout and we do those things. I don't really do that with our players, though. I want our players to be worried about us. I believe that if we're worried about us and we take care of the details and we really master the situations and we understand what we're supposed to do, I think that takes care of itself. Yes, I mean, I like the schedule. I think it's tough. I think, Buffalo is a contender in the MAC every year. UAB is always really talented. I mean, we had a war with them down in Birmingham a few years back in 2020. They're always going to be talented. You play a conference game week 2 with an opponent we've never played before. Right. You have a lot of those things, but Minnesota, certainly what they did last year, but that's the fun in it. Our conference has gotten to the point where there are no easy games. There's not a lot of difference from the bottom and the top. I mean, it's what it is. Right. Every year. Year we go 13-1. I mean, how many one-possession games did we play in the conference against teams that, some of them really didn't have very good years. So you have to show up and be ready, but more than the opponent, it's about the work that we do, and it's about the preparation that we put in. Because I'm fully confident in this group, and I've been harder on them this spring than I was last year because I expect a lot more of this team this year. I expect us to get back where we want to be, and that's hosting conference championships, playing for conference championships, and that's where our team's at. So, I'm excited about the schedule. I think it provides a lot of challenges, but it's something that if we take care of our business, we'll be up for it week to week.
Last thing that I asked Michael Desormeaux was, when you look at a program and you look at a new head coach, the biggest growth is from year 1 to year 2. So where did he see his biggest growth, knowing that after a full season, the newness factor wasn't really there this past spring for the Cajuns?
I really believe it's the continuity that we've got. You've got coach-player relationships that are now on 2 years at least. You've got play callers on both sides of the ball that have worked with that staff for a year now, going into year 2. All your systems and things like that are in place. I think it's just the continuity. I mean, we're the only school in the conference that's been able to keep all 10 of our assistant coaches. It's not because they didn't have other opportunities. It's because they chose to stay here, and they believe in these kids and this program and what we're doing. And I think continuity is something that there's never – it's never like it's got so much of a bigger impact than what people give it credit for, and that's the thing to me. It's just been like seamless this year. Like things that last year you had to explain and you had to go through and you had to kind of painstakingly almost kind of go through the details of it, but you have to. This year it's been just really fast and seamless, and everyone knows what to expect. So those things have been really good, and that's what I'm looking forward to in year 2 is just all of us, being on the same page, being in sync a little bit sooner, a little bit easier.
Really great conversation there with head coach Michael Desormeaux this past week at Sunbelt Media Days, recapping his 2022 season and getting his team set for another season of 2023 Louisiana Raging Cajuns football. We'll be back on Friday talking multiple topics: LSU football, the Houston Astros, just kind of a general overview of what's happening with all your favorite teams that we cover here on ESPN Southwest Louisiana. Make sure you go follow us on social media at ESPN_SWLA. And like I said, we'll be back on Friday doing a recap show right here on the Miguez Mindset.